Thank you for joining us for this special edition of KPBS News. I'm Maya Trabulsi. This weekend brings new guidance on how California will reopen as COVID-19 case numbers decline. On Friday, Governor Newsom introduced a new color-coded system detailing when certain businesses can reopen. You can find that in greater detail at kpbs.org. Local schools could begin reopening as soon as Tuesday if current trends continue. We have much more on that in this newscast, along with how the county is using its new budget to deal with the pandemic. As for the numbers, San Diego County now has more than 37,000 cases and more than 670 deaths since March. When it comes to local cases, getting details hasn't been easy. As investigative reporter Claire Trageser tells us, KPBS is joining in a public records lawsuit in the hopes of getting that information.
During news conferences, when county health officials talk about COVID-19 outbreaks, here's what they say.
8 outbreaks in businesses, 4 in restaurants/bars.
KPBS and other journalists have repeatedly asked for more information, and the county has repeatedly denied those requests. So we are joining Voice of San Diego in a public records lawsuit.
We keep seeing restaurant bars in the description of these outbreaks. Well, are those restaurant bars operating outside? Are we getting information through this that operating outside isn't working? Or is something else happening? Is it the kitchen staff? And what does that tell us about, what's going on?
Scott Lewis is the editor and CEO of Voice of San Diego.
That's a fundamental question to our activities as humans right now. Like that, if people found out that, in fact, it spreads really well in outdoor patios of restaurants, well, that's going to really influence my decision about whether to go in an outdoor restaurant.
Lewis says without the more detailed information, residents can't make informed decisions about the relative risk of engaging in activities like eating out. He adds that it is also an equity issue. If some neighborhoods are being hit harder by outbreaks than others, the public needs to know. Suzanne Marmion is KPBS's Director of News and Editorial Strategy.
If we have an outbreak that happens more than once in a particular location, the public depends on journalists to find out and report that out so that it gives an opportunity maybe for enforcement. It gives an opportunity to solve what may be a specific problem.
Instead of commenting, a San Diego County spokeswoman referred KPBS to an op-ed saying outbreak locations should not be public because it could make businesses fearful of reporting cases to health officials. However, this is not how the county has acted in the past. During the 2017 hepatitis A outbreak, they did reveal locations where people might have been exposed. Claire Trageser, KPBS News.
Since March, we've seen a major surge in demand for information at kpbs.org, led by our Tracking COVID-19 page. And that's where you'll find the latest numbers, headlines, and our in-depth reports on the pandemic. And in recent days, we've redesigned the layout to make it easier to find the information you need. To get there, just click on the Tracking COVID-19 link on our homepage. A gym in University Heights that defied orders to close has relented, and it all comes down to money. Boulevard Fitness chose to remain open despite county orders to close indoor activities in mid-June. The gym's owner emailed members to say it faced a $1,000 fine every day it stayed open. He says the closure will be temporary. It could be a matter of days until local schools get the green light to reopen. As KPBS health reporter Taryn Mento explains, local health officials laid out guidelines that might provide answers for anxious parents.
Schools in San Diego County are days away from getting the option to reopen. If the county's case rate continues to stay below the state's threshold, schools could be cleared for in-person learning as soon as next Tuesday.
We're doing everything that we can to try and facilitate and support a safe return to a learning environment.
Supervisor Nathan Fletcher says that includes testing for school personnel. He says tests are available for staff at existing county sites, but the county is launching specific locations just for education personnel, including those who work at private and charter schools.
There are strong recommendations in the California Department of Public Health requirement of testing of staff at school facilities. This is not just teachers, it is teachers and maintenance and bus drivers and administrative support staff.
But he says testing isn't recommended for students without symptoms. But parents still interested in testing should contact their pediatrician. Still, some districts may not reopen. San Diego Unified has said it'll begin online until other metrics improve. County Office of Education Superintendent Paul Gotthold says right now not all kids have internet access, but new county funding may finally help them get online.
It's going to help families to be able to get in front of, not have to go to the local library to use the resource to be available to their home. And so we're excited about the prospects. Even as early as next week, we will have thousands of families connected because of this new plan that we'll be able to provide.
He says once schools do reopen, individual classrooms, schools, or districts may be shut down for 2 weeks if too many people test positive.
5% of a classroom. So if you're talking about pods of kids in small groups, this could just mean one positive case, either students or staff. That classroom would automatically shut down for 14 days. If you're talking about an individual school, 5% again is the metric.
Still, Dr. Wooten says more guidance is coming, including for when businesses can reopen. The governor today said that's coming Friday. Taryn Mento, KPBS News.
San Diego Unified Schools will get some local help to expand its food services. Last week, the Department of Agriculture moved to end distribution of breakfast and lunch. The school district is now working with Feeding San Diego and the San Diego Food Bank to keep helping families in need. For the school year, the district plans to more than triple the number of meal pickup locations from 26 to 82. Just days before the start of the new school year, some schools in East County are abandoning their online learning platform. KPBS education reporter Joe Hong says concerns were raised about racist and inappropriate content.
The announcement from the district came just a day before the start of the school year, informing parents that it would be cutting ties with Acellus, a Kansas City-based company. La Mesa Spring Valley administrators said they made the decision after reading reports from other districts of sexually suggestive and racist material in the virtual curriculum. Deanne Ragsdale, the assistant superintendent of education services at La Mesa Spring Valley, said in a written statement that she asked Acellus about these reports and was not satisfied by the company's response. Ragsdale wrote, "They confirmed that some of the offensive content had existed in the program and they assured us it had been removed. However, we did not feel that they recognized the severity of the issue, nor did we feel they would be able to prevent this from happening again. In the end, we had no choice but to terminate the contract." According to the news outlet Civil Beat, parents in Hawaii posted the inappropriate content on social media.
"Hi, sweetie, whoops. Where did your dad that name? Don't ask. We're not even going there."
In another lesson, students are asked, Osama bin Laden was the leader of what terrorist group? One of the multiple choice responses is towel ban. Another question portrays abolitionist Harriet Tubman as a criminal. Ragsdale said the district included Acellus only as a supplemental component of its distance learning curriculum. She said the program was recommended to the district by the San Diego County Office of Education. Music Watson is the chief spokeswoman for the County Office of Education. She clarified that her office did not officially endorse Acellus.
We had one employee who recommended this based on personal experience. She won't be doing that anymore, and we're working internally to clarify and make sure that all of our employees are familiar with our process for vetting different technology systems.
Jennifer Gravetto, a parent at the La Mesa Arts Academy, agrees with the decision to terminate the contract with Acellus, but said it was completely unacceptable that it happened just before the start of the school year. In response to questions from KPBS, she wrote, "The termination of the contract sounds as if it was completely appropriate regarding the discovery of the material being utilized. The district and teachers should already have had an understanding of the material offered, and training should have happened much sooner than the week before school." The La Mesa Spring Valley School District has not yet set a date for reopening campuses, but plans to reopen gradually through a hybrid model once the county has been off the state's monitoring list for 14 days. Joe Hong, KPBS News.
The college experience is far different amid COVID-19 as San Diego State begins a new academic year. Fall semester is underway with only about 10% of classes being held on campus. The rest is happening online. Residence halls are at half capacity, and the university is providing services on campus for those who need it. This week, SDSU reported a handful of new COVID-19 cases among students who live off campus. Economic fallout from the COVID-19 pandemic has cost millions of jobs, but some federal positions are safe for now. U.S. Citizenship and Immigration Services was planning to cut 13,000 staff due to a sharp decline in green card applications. Critics of the planned furlough said it would set back citizenship applications for years and leave thousands of immigrants unable to renew their work authorizations. The head of the agency says it will still need a federal bailout this fall. Some of those working on the front lines of the pandemic say they still have concerns about having what they need to do their job safely. Matt Hoffman shows us how healthcare workers in North County are part of a statewide campaign.
In Oceanside, hospital workers are rallying to support a bill that would mandate the state have a stockpile of PPE and require hospitals to also increase their supplies. Healthcare workers say without that, there's deadly consequences. At Tri-City Medical Center, healthcare workers skipped their lunches, holding a moment of silence for their colleagues lost during the pandemic.
We represent 100,000 workers. We have lost 14 already to COVID-19 due to lack of PPE, and this has been at different hospitals throughout the state.
Staff here say when the pandemic first broke out, no one was ready.
Everybody's scared. No one knows when the supply is going to run out.
Healthcare workers say having a constant supply of clean personal protective equipment is a lifeline for them.
I have my grandson who was born with congenital heart defect, and so was my son-in-law. So if I don't take care of myself here at work and don't have PPEs, I'll take those viruses home or get them sick, and that can be detrimental to them, and that would hurt me so badly.
The Healthcare and Essential Workers Protection Act would require the state to have at least a 3-month supply of clean PPE for both healthcare workers and essential workers. It would also mandate healthcare employers, including clinics, healthcare facilities, and home health agencies, to maintain new unexpired PPE in the event of a state of emergency.
We have to do everything we can to basically outfit them as they're going to war, and that's not something that has been happening.
Now, Tri-City does have a stockpile of PPE, and people here are commending the healthcare system for, they say, stepping up to the plate. But they say it's not this way everywhere.
Our government, our state, who's going to support us when we run out of this stuff? And how are we going to do our jobs and take care of our patients and our community if we don't have PPEs?
Tri-City officials say they will continue to work with healthcare unions like SEIU to make sure there's an adequate supply of PPE. Healthcare workers here say they're tired of lip service, and mandating a stockpile would show them that officials have their backs. In Oceanside, Matt Hoffman, KPBS News.
A state lawmaker from East County tested positive for COVID-19 this week, and that impacted his colleagues at the Capitol. State Senator Brian Jones, a Republican from Santee, announced his positive test on Wednesday. On Thursday, Republicans in the state Senate were not allowed to enter the Capitol building due to potential exposure. They had to vote by video conference instead. Lawmakers are rushing to meet Monday's deadline to pass any remaining bills in the current session. Back here in San Diego, county supervisors just passed their largest budget ever, $6.5 billion. KPBS Metro reporter Andrew Bowen says more money will be spent to deal with the consequences of COVID-19.
For years, progressives have criticized the county for sitting on billions of dollars in reserves, while problems like homelessness and mental illness fester. The pandemic did what those activists couldn't. The county dipped into its reserves and federal CARES Act funding to pay for new or expanded services, including $24 million in rental assistance. Supervisor Greg Cox said he was also pleased with a new staff position that will monitor water quality in his South Bay district.
City of Imperial Beach and communities in South County have had to suffer with the ill effects of raw sewage and other materials coming across the border and coming out into our beaches. And I'm really glad to see that this is going to be an opportunity to have a daily testing to ensure good water quality for people to use the beaches down in South County.
A big driver of the overall budget increase was a $100 million boost in spending on testing, tracing, and treatment for COVID, as well as protective gear and other supplies for healthcare workers. Andrew Bowen, KPBS News.
Aside from COVID-19, the other big story in California has been the wildfires burning to our north. Eric Anderson takes a look at how a pandemic complicates what's already a difficult job for firefighters.
The Apple Fire in Riverside County roared through rugged backcountry earlier this month, blackening more than 33,000 acres in just 2 weeks. Nearly 8,000 people were evacuated. 2 weeks later, a second major fire hit the region in the Angeles National Forest, the Lake Fire. California Governor Gavin Newsom says this is a much more active fire season.
While last year we experienced some acuity of fires, a Kincaid fire, some others down Getty Fire, and some others in Southern California, the total number of fires last year was substantially lower than the activity we're experiencing this year.
Since January, there have been more than 6,700 fires in the state, up from just over 4,000 the year before. With the hottest months of the year just ahead, safety is a key priority.
We get a fire, and we're tired, and that fatigue sometimes makes us a little woozy or confused.
CAL FIRE Captain Danny Ramirez is huddled with about a dozen firefighters under a shade tree near the Jamul Fire Station. It's the safety briefing before a midday hike in 100-degree heat. The big lessons today: be safe, stay hydrated, and communicate.
When it heats up in the middle of the day at 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock, that those triggers get back in their mind and say, hey, that's what we talked about this morning, the heat, the probability of ignition.
And then there's the threat of COVID-19. Everyone on the crew is wearing a face mask in an effort to keep from spreading the infection. Ramirez says firefighters are taking the advice of public health officials because they can't afford to lose anyone.
I'm wearing our masks, taking our temperatures every morning, double checking with everybody. Is probably the best thing we can do.
But Ramirez concedes that staying safe in the firehouse or during training is much easier than when the crew is battling flames in the midst of a wildfire. And he says firefighting remains their first priority.
Saving a structure or life, that COVID kind of takes a backseat to that. When we can regroup and we have to, remember that COVID, then we'll use those precautions again.
The Apple Fire was the first major fire incident where CAL FIRE also dealt with the pandemic.
Being up there in Riverside at the base camp, things were different. It was a different experience.
CAL FIRE's Thomas Schutz says there were actually 2 base camps, so firefighters didn't congregate in just one area. Food service was pre-packed, and crews that came together fought the fire together and stayed together. Fire officials want to keep the virus out of their ranks, and that's tough because some local firefighters have already been infected.
We're really lucky down here in San Diego County with CAL FIRE and San Diego County Fire. We have a lot of folks to draw from. We have 40 stations, and so even these small little blips where we have folks go out, it's not devastating to us. We're able to work through it.
What CAL FIRE officials want to avoid is creating a super spreader event during a battle against a major wildfire. The agency can't afford to lose lots of firefighters just as the wildfire season heats up.
Go on the right, keep your dying. Go on the right, keep your dying.
Juan Ramirez from Irvine and his hand crew are hiking through the East County near Jamul on this day.
Put it on the fan. Last man, got it.
He's carrying plenty of water and a heavy hand tool.
You strike vegetation and tear.
The idea is to cut through the fuel that might feed a wildfire and scrape the ground bare. The fast-paced hike is designed to physically prepare the crew for line work in dry, hot conditions. But Ramirez knows a wildfire will make it worse.
It's a little hotter, it's a little drier, and you got that smoke and that low visibility, and everybody's on high alert with their head on the swivel and working hard.
The wind and the heat are already issues in the backcountry, especially when there's a fire as part of the equation. COVID-19 now exacerbates that situation. Eric Anderson, KPBS News.
SeaWorld is back in business months after shutting down due to the pandemic. On Friday, the theme park welcomed guests for a special Bayside barbecue event. It's part of a limited reopening. Guests can still visit outdoor animal attractions like the dolphins and the orcas, but indoor activities like aquariums are off limits. Rides are also closed for now. SeaWorld is also limiting capacity at the park. Theme parks are one of many businesses hit hard in recent months, but a few are thriving. John Carroll shows us one profession that's rolling in business.
Like so many commercial districts in San Diego, a lot of businesses along Adams Avenue have struggled since the pandemic hit, but not the one at the northeast corner of Adams and Hamilton.
take your phone number and call you when we have a shipment of Cannondales coming in September, and I got a list of folks on that.
This is Adams Avenue Bicycles, and owner Chuck Kofer says since COVID-19 hit, business has gone through the roof.
When COVID first struck, riding a bike was still an acceptable form of exercise or getting out of your house.
Kofer says that translated to all sorts of people wheeling out their bikes that had been sitting idle and then realizing they needed repairs. Pre-COVID, that sometimes took a day or two, a week at most. Not now.
Currently, it's been 3 to 5 weeks, pretty consistent for a couple months now, actually.
In addition to the volume of bikes needing fixing, Kofer says there's also a shortage of bike mechanics. And then there's an issue with getting parts.
Certain parts haven't been available, and we've had to delay a repair for weeks, and even a few over a month or two.
But it's not just the repair business that's going through the roof. Chuck Kofer tells me that he's having trouble keeping new bikes in stock as well. So if you're ready to hit the road on 2 wheels, but your bike isn't, be patient. And if you're an experienced bicycle mechanic looking for work, give Chuck a call.
Yeah.
John Carroll, KPBS News.
A week after its grand opening, the pandemic forced Derby United's outdoor rink to close. KPBS arts reporter Beth Accomando signed up for a skate lesson to see how the organization is pivoting to stay open.
Women who play roller derby have a special kind of toughness because they play a sport that gets little respect and even less support. Neely Goldfarb, better known by her derby name of Isabel Ringer, was fed up with not having a place to play roller derby. So she took matters into her own hands.
This is the edge of the flat track here. Look, we're watching a game. Go!
And simply decided to build an outdoor facility for her team, Derby United. The 2-rink venue, known as Derby United Headquarters, had its grand opening in March.
We had a huge celebration. Hundreds of folks came out for a roller derby game. And a week later, we closed for the pandemic.
But as any derby player knows, you have to be able to adapt to whatever gets thrown at you, whether it's an elbow or a pandemic.
I'm not gonna lie, it's been really hard. We built this place to have big roller derby programs. It works on volume. And here we are saying, okay, we're gonna have 12 people per class in a limited time slot with online reservation.
Derby United Headquarters was built to host bouts with teams from around San Diego and the country. Now it's turning its smooth, flat rink into a space for recreational skating.
Okay, all good? Let's go ahead and skate now.
We are extremely fortunate to have an outdoor facility, so we are open air to start with. We do still require masks for everyone on the property. All of our activities are taking place 6 feet or more apart. We limit our class numbers, so even though we have 9,000 square feet of concrete pad, we still only have about 12 people per class, so that there's plenty of room for your own space and that you can feel like you're in a safe place.
Skaters of all ages and experience, including no experience at all, are welcome.
We have a wide range of offering, from really little kid classes we call little rollers, to adults who are opening their very first pair of skates and need to learn to roller skate, or more experienced folks who want to learn things like jam and freestyle and dance that can come out and really hone their skills and feel good on their skates.
Feeling good is key to the Derby United mission.
We hope that when people come to this property, they're able to escape whatever's going on in the outside world and just spend some time focusing on themselves on roller skates. It's good for their physical health, their mental health, their emotional health. We want to be the best part of anybody's day.
David Diaz agrees. He came to the facility for a private birthday party and then signed up for classes.
Honestly, it's just the cardio. It's so fun. You know, cardio is good for the heart and a lot of other things. It's good to sweat, but running is very boring. So if I can skate and get a majority of my cardio and supplement it with running, then I'm A-okay.
Diaz built his own custom skates. Goldfarb says roller skating has had a massive revival during the pandemic, with skates being hard to find. But not to worry, she's got that covered too.
We have hundreds of pairs of roller skates, so even if you can't get your hands on a pair of roller skates right now, we have some that you can borrow with any class or session that you come here. Please bring your own protective gear. For beginners, I especially recommend at least wrist and knee pad, and we'll teach you everything from there.
It's hard to say no to Goldfarb. On the rink or off, she's a force to be reckoned with. Whether on skates playing in a bout or dealing with a pandemic as Derby United's owner and general manager, she sets her goals and goes after them with ferocious energy.
We are extremely resilient. We will survive through this no matter what. However, this still doesn't touch having hundreds of people for events every weekend. So we have these offerings and that helps, but it also takes a lot of creative financial planning, a landlord who's willing to be flexible, taking on more debt, a lot of different programs that we're applying to, and we're gonna have to piece that whole thing together to make it to the other side of this. But we'll be here.
You can count on that. Beth Accomando, KPBS News.
A reminder that you can find that story and more at our redesigned Tracking COVID-19 page at kpbs.org. That's where you'll find the latest numbers, headlines, and our in-depth reports on the pandemic. To get there, just click the Tracking COVID-19 link on our homepage. And that's all for this special edition of KPBS News. For all of us here at KPBS, I'm Maya Trabulsi. Thank you for joining us. Stay safe.